Hi everyone, and welcome to this video. So in this video we're going to be looking at how to create a user model that we're going to use for authentication. Now we're going to start by creating an application that's going to have all the logic and all the models and everything associated to our user authentication. So I'm going to open up my terminal right here. So I'll stop that server with Ctrl and C, and then the first thing I'm going to do is to create our accounts app. So I'll do that with Python manage.py, and then we'll run the start app management command that's going to create that app. So I'm going to create our app as accounts, and right after creating our app as accounts, I'm going to close our terminal for now. So the first thing we're going to do is to actually register this in our admin. So I'll go to our simple, actually register it within our main project. So I'll go to our simple blog, which is our project folder. And then within our project folder, I'm simply going to come and add our accounts app. And right after adding it, now let's go ahead and look into how to create our custom user model. So what you're going to do in this case is to create a custom user model. This is not going to be the same model as our default Django user model. So you're going to go to our accounts, and then within our models.py module right here, we're going to begin by creating a custom user manager. Now this custom user manager is going to dictate how we are going to be able to create our users. So we're going to use the base user manager class that's going to allow us to create this manager. So I begin by importing the base user manager class. So I'll come and say from Django.contrib.auth.base user, we're going to import our base user manager. So using this base user manager, we're going to describe how our objects are going to be created. Now come right here and create this class, which is going to be the class of our, so we shall actually call this our custom user manager. And this is going to inherit from our base user manager. And right after doing this, we're going to briefly describe two methods. Now the first one is going to be for creating our user. So we're going to come and create that as our create user. So this is going to take in self. It's also going to take in what we expect to be the username field. Now we're going to create our model as it's actually going to subclass our AbstractUser class, which means we're going to use the existing Django model, but we're going to change our username field to email. So in this case, we're going to provide our username field, which is going to be our email, and then we shall provide our password, and then we shall have some extra fields. Now these extra fields are the other fields that come with the default Django user model. So in this case, I'm just going to come and say extra fields. So I'll pass this for now. Now also going to describe another method. This method is going to be the one for creating a super user. So I'm just simply going to come and say create super user, and then it's going to take in the same parameters like the function we use for creating a user. So this one is actually going to briefly explain how we're going to be creating a super user. Now we shall need to set things such as add is staff or is super user to true, which I'm going to look at in a second. So I'll pass this for now. Now also going to go ahead and create our user model that's going to briefly describe all the fields that our user model is going to have. Now to do that, I'm just simply going to come and say class. So in this case, we're going to call this our user model. So this is going to inherit from our AbstractUser class. So the AbstractUser class is the one that we use in case we want to create a user model that's custom and has all the other existing Django user model fields. So I'll come right here, and all I have to do is to import it. So I'll import it from Django.contrib.auth, and then in this case we shall say we're going to go to the models module, and then we import our AbstractUser. Now right after importing our AbstractUser, I'm just simply going to come in here and say we're going to have our AbstractUser, and right after doing this, we're simply going to pass this for now. Now let's just take care of our create user method right here. So the create user method is going to be responsible for creating a user. Now we shall first need to get our email. So our email is going to be the string that we shall pass in as our email, but we are provided with a function called a normalize email function that's going to allow us to turn that string into a valid email. So I'll begin by saying self.normalize email, and then you shall provide the email. And right after doing that, then we're going to create our user object. So this user object is going to be self.model, and self.model in this case is going to be our user model. So this is going to take in our email, and this email is going to be the email after normalizing. And then you shall have all the other extra fields. And right after doing that, then what you're going to also do is to set a password for this user. So to do that, I'll just come and say user.set password, and in this case we're going to provide the password that we provided as parameter to our create user function. So I'll just come right here and say that we're going to have our password, and right after doing that, then let's go ahead and save our user object. So I'll just come and say user.save, and then we are simply going to return our user object. And right after doing that, so this is just enough to create our user using our custom user model. Now let's go ahead and describe how we're going to create our super users. So super users are those users that can be able to access the admin dashboard as well as have permissions to do some admin tasks. Now we have some extra fields that we need to set before we create those super users. So I'm just going to come right in here within our create super user method. And then the first thing I have to do is to set the extra field. So I begin by setting. So extra field is going to be a dictionary right here. So we get access to the set default method or set default function, and that is going to take in a key. So in this case, we expect to set its staff, and in this case, we shall set its staff to true. Now also going to do the same thing for a super user. So I'll just come right here and say extra fields dot set default, and then in this case we shall come and say is super user, and we shall set this to true. Now we're also going to check if these are not true, and if they are not true, we are going to raise a value error. So in this case, we shall have to first define an if statement. So this if statement is going to have if extra fields dot. So in this case, we are going to use the get function or the get method, since these are dictionaries. And then we shall have to specify a key. In this case, our key is going to be staff, and we're going to check if this attribute is not true. And if it's not true, we shall raise a value error. So I'm going to come and say raise value error. Now in this case, we shall raise a value error. So in this case, we're just going to come and say super user. Sorry for that. So in this case, we're going to come and say that our super user has to have his staff being true. So this is going to be important for creating our super users. Now I'm going to do the same thing for our super user, and I'm just going to come and paste it right here. So I'll have to change this to is super user. So I'll just come and say is super user, and in this case we shall have to briefly tell whoever is creating a super user that this has to have the super user attribute set to true. And right after doing that, then the next thing will be to actually create and save our user. So in this case, we're just going to come here, and all we have to do is to return our self.create user. Now what this is going to do, it's going to create a user given the email and given the password as well as the. So in this case, we're going to be having the email, which is going to be equal to our email. We shall have our password being equal to our password, and then we shall have our extra fields. And right there, we have been able to create a super user. So after describing our manager, let us go ahead characters. Now, right after having that, since this is going to be our user model, it should have unique being equal to true. Now, we're going to come and set unique to true. And right after doing that, then we shall also come right here and describe some other fields that our user is going to have. Now, we shall come and provide the username. So we shall have models.character field. And in this case, we shall have the max length as, let's say, 45 characters. Now, right after doing that, we can also provide other fields such as date of birth. And in this case, it's going to be models.character field. And in this case, we can say, we can have, in this case, it's going to be models.character field. And actually, it's not going to be models.character field. Let's just make it a date field. And we leave it to that. So we've been able to add some fields onto our user model. Now, the first thing we're going to do is to show that we need to use our custom manager to be able to create this user model. So to do that, we're going to come and define the objects attribute on this class, and this is going to be equal to our custom user manager. And right after doing this, then we're going to go ahead and basically we create a method that's going to return a string representation of our objects. So we're going to come and define that as our str method. And this str method is going to take in self. And right after having this, we're simply going to return the username of that specific user. So we're actually going to return this username. So we shall just come and say self.username. And this will return the username. So I'll have to change this self, and we're going to have the username each time we're returning a string representation of these objects. Now, other things you need to add onto this class are going to be the username field, or the name we shall use as our username, or the field we're actually going to use as our username. Now, in this case, we're going to use our email as our username. Now, this field should be unique. That's why we set unique to true. Now, you shall also need to describe some other fields that are going to be required while creating a user. Now, in this case, I'm just going to come right here, and all I have to do is to say required fields. And in this case, it's going to be a list of strings that are going to be our fields that we require while signing up a user. So I'm just going to come and provide this. I'll just provide our username as our required field. Now, right after doing this, I'm going to go ahead and save. And after saving, the first thing I'm going to do is to tell Django that we have a custom user model created. So I'll do that by going to our settings.py, and then shall go to our settings, and within our settings, we're going to add one setting right here, and that will be our auth user model. So the auth user model is going to be located within our accounts app, and then it's going to have a name of our user. So the way we do that is by going to our app and then specifying the name of the custom user model that we want to use as our model. Now, another thing we're going to do is to register our user model on our admin. So to do that, I'll simply go within our accounts app, and then I'll go to our admin, and then I'll just come right here and say that we're going to have admin dot, actually it's going to just be admin dot site dot register, and then we shall have our user model. So I'll have to import it right here. Say from dot models, we are simply going to go ahead and import our user model. And right after doing that, I'm going to go ahead and save. And right after saving, we are going to go ahead and run this migration, or create a migration for our user model, as well as to go ahead and migrate it to our database. So to do that, I'm simply going to pull up our terminal right here, and I'll have to basically run our management command for creating migrations. So I'll do that with python manage.py, and then make migrations. And this is going to create a migration file. So we actually have a model or returable. Oh, so in this case, we didn't provide the model. So I'll just come and provide our user model. And in this case, when we run our migrations, we actually create a migration for our user model, but let's try to check it out. So to check out the migration we have, I'll just simply go to our migrations folder within our accounts app. And then you go to that migration, let us discover something. So we are going to check, and we basically see that we have all the other fields that we have for our existing Django user model, plus all those that we've defined for ourselves, such as the email, the username, and the date of birth. Now, this is important because it actually explains how the AbstractUser class works. So right after doing that, I'm going to close this. And since we've created that migration here, let us go ahead and make these changes to our database. So I'm going to come right here and say Python money.py migrate. And right now we actually have inconsistent migrations as our default migration basically depends on the migration that we've created. So what I'm going to do is to get rid of our database, and I'm simply doing this because we are still in development. So I'm going to get rid of this SQLite database and I'll rerun our migrations from scratch. So I'll just come and say Python money.py and then migrate, and this will have our custom user model table created for us. So right after running our migrations, I'm simply going to go ahead and create a superuser. So to create a superuser, run Python money.py create superuser, and right after doing this, we now see that instead of the username, we are being asked for the email. So I'll provide our email as admin@app.com, and then we shall have our username as admin, and then I'm going to provide the password. So choose a password, and then I'll retype our password. So we actually see that we having a note now constraint failed. So I'm actually going to come and change this. So I'll just come to our user model right here, and we can leave this as now. So I'll just have to come and basically pass now and set this to true because we do not want to provide this as when creating. So I'll just come and save this, and maybe we shall need to just set this up with our views instead of actually creating a super user who has a date of birth. So I'm going to come and save, and when I save, I'll create a migration for that with Python money.py make migrations, and this is going to alter the date of birth field, and then we shall go ahead and migrate, and that will change it. So let's create our super user. So I'm going to come and provide a super user with an email of admin@app.com, and then our username is going to be admin. In our password, in this case our password is going to be password. So I'll provide a password, and then I'll provide a password. And now our super user has been created successfully. So let's try to access our admin dashboard. So to do that, I'm just going to come and run Python money.py and then run server. So this is going to go and start our server at localhost 8000. So I'm going to go to our Chrome right here, and when you go to our admin, so I'm going to access the /admin URL. This is going to take into our admin login. So when you have our admin login, we're going to provide our email, which is admin@app.com. Then we shall have our password. So I'll provide our password and then try to log into our admin. So right now we see that we have our accounts app. We also have our authentication and authorization modules. But when you go to our users right here, we can see our list of users. So we have our admin user, And this is the various data that we've been able to set for our user, containing also the fields that we set as our custom user model. So we've now been able to see how the abstract user class helps us to create a custom user. Now the other thing we're going to do is to be able to register our posts on our admin app. So I'm just simply going to come right here, and all I have to do is to go to our post app, and then we shall access the admin dashboard. So within here, we're actually going to create a custom admin for this. So the way I'm going to come and do that is by first importing our post model. So I'll just come and say from dot models, we are going to go and import our post model, and then I'll just come right here, and all I have to do is to say at admin dot register. Now in this case, shall register our post class, and we shall have to create a custom user admin or a custom post admin for our post model. So in this case, I'm just going to come and call this class post admin, and it's going to subclass the admin dot model admin class. Now right after having this, we're going to state the list display. So the list display is going to be an iterable containing the fields that we want to show on our list of posts in our admin. I'll just come and provide that as, so in this case, we shall have to provide our title, and we should also have to provide created. I wonder if we called it created actually. So when I go in our models, we actually called it created, which is the date at which you created this field. So I'm just going to come here and then provide our list filter. So we shall filter these, we shall filter our posts using our created or the date at which we created our posts. So I'm going to go ahead and save. When you go back to our admin right here, when I refresh, we now see that our posts have also been added. However, we don't have any posts for now. So what I'm going to come and do that is by coming in my Insomnia. So I already have some of the endpoints for creating our posts created. I'll just come and maybe create a new post, and I'll fill our database with some random posts so that we can actually have some data to work with. So when you try to get all posts in this case, we see that all our posts have actually been created. In this video, we've been able to create our custom user model. We've also looked at how we can create a custom user model with the abstract user class, and we've also dealt with how we can register it with our admin and other things. In the next video, we shall be looking at how to create a user using our custom user model that we've created. Thank you for watching, guys, and if you've enjoyed this video, please like, subscribe to the channel if you're new. Thanks for watching, and see you in the next video. Bye.